Hey folks, David Stewart here. It's time again for your weekly Lovecraft. This week it's going to be the Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. This is one of his most popular stories, and there are very good reasons for this. First of all, it's a great story to read if you want to understand the mythos of Cthulhu and indeed all of the great old ones, which surrounds and suffuses most of his horror work. Also, it's a story that's very well executed in a technical sense. He does a couple of interesting things that mitigate some of the issues that you have from writing from first-person perspective in a horror context or any context where you want the characters to be in imminent danger. So I'm going to start there. Usually, if you're writing in a first-person perspective, which is like, I did this, I did that, there's built into that style the assumption that the narrator survives to tell the tale. The problem, of course, is that if you have that in a story that should involve mortal danger for the main character, the reader is really operating on a correct assumption that the main character won't die. That removes a sense of tension. Lovecraft circumvents this by a very, very short sentence that opens up the story. Found among the papers of the late Francis Wayland Thurston of Boston. So that lets you know that he probably didn't survive this. And so because he didn't survive this, that leaves a bit of an eerie air on this as well. So as you read this in the first person perspective, you are going to wonder about what about this experience that's communicated led him to disappear or to die. It's like reading the effects of a dead man. And not only that, but there's another layer, because one of the first things that happens is that the main character, the narrator, is also perusing the effects of a dead man. The reason this layering is really important is because by reading about him perusing the effects of a dead man, and through that introduction, you yourself are perusing the effects of a dead man. You are, in essence, repeating the cycle that the narrator is going to show for you in this particular piece. That's a very interesting thing that Lovecraft was able to do there, and one that I really haven't seen done successfully since. But it's very, very effective, I think. It lends an eerie atmosphere to the whole thing, knowing that you are doing the same thing that the character's doing. You're looking through the collected effects on this Cthulhu monster. The entirety of the story uses first person in a number of different ways and uses secondhand sources. So as you read about him going through the effects of his late uncle and discovering this strange statue of Cthulhu and seeing the description of Cthulhu with this octopus head, you eventually start to read about the secondhand events that happened over by Australia, over in the Pacific Ocean, where these sailors came across this mad group of people. There was all these fights that ensued. You actually get to go to Relaya, which is where Cthulhu, the dead Cthulhu, sleeps and also is not really dead. That is not dead, which can eternal lie, and with strange eons, even death may die. And that's what you get to say. That's from the Necronomicon, which is another thing that you see again and again and again in Lovecraft's work. And so as the narrator is investigating this like a detective, he comes across more and more information and gets deeper and deeper and deeper into that descent into madness. As he understands more and more of what is actually happening, he not only comes to find it quite maddening, but believes that nobody should be presented with this information because it will cause madness. So you have the descent into madness. You have somewhat of an unreliable narrator, but what you start to get with the unreliability of the narrator is that he's not really sure if he's going mad or if this is a reality that he needs to accept. And the way the story ends to kind of encap this wonderment over his fate, I think is very effective for sealing the whole thing up. He says, Cthulhu still lives too, I suppose, again in that chasm of stone which has shielded him since the sun was young. His accursed city is sunken once more, for the Vigilant sailed over the spot after the April storm, but his ministers on earth still bellow and prance and slay around idol-capped monoliths in lonely places. He must have been trapped by the sinking, whilst within his black abyss, or else the world would by now be screaming with fright and frenzy. Who knows the end? What has risen may sink, and what has sunk may arise. Loathsomeness waits and dreams in the deep, and decay spreads over the tottering cities of men. A time will come but I must not and cannot think. Let me pray that, if I do not survive this manuscript, my executors may put caution before audacity and see that it meets no other eye. Now that end cap to me is very interesting because of this two-layer effect where you are reading the effects of a dead man and he was reading the effects of the dead man. And the dead man whose effects he was reading didn't really want these things to get out because of the madness that they cause. So I think the end cap in the beginning really ties this eerie feeling together and makes you kind of a part of the story in a really effective way. Another reason that I think this story is worth reading is simply because of the imagery that's in it. Not just the description of Cthulhu, but you also have this idea that multiple people are having these eerie visions at the same time, which is a great prelude for what you end up finding in a literal sense. You get this intrusion upon, I don't know what you would call it, like a vast animalistic orgy that the police come across out in the bayou that isn't voodoo, that's something else where they recover this statuette. You have a great scene of actually reaching the lair of Cthulhu and the dimension bending that happens when the gate opens up and as the sailors flee and they're either imagining or they're seeing this giant monster behind them, but then he's disappeared from the world. We don't know if he actually made it out or not, and that's what that last paragraph gets to show. Another thing about the technical execution of this that I like is that you have this noir element really before noir was a thing, and what would become a noir element, which is the investigation into mystery, and mystery slowly unfolding horror and slowly unfolding strange things which are different from what you thought they'd be. Now, all in all, I think it's a great story. I think it's one that everyone really ought to check out. It's one that most people start with if they're getting into Lovecraft, and it's not a bad one to start with at all because of what's in it. It has lots of the little things that Lovecraft likes to do, lots of the ways that he likes to describe things. His use of prose to prolong the matriculation of a moment to increase the tension of what you're doing. His micro is very good in the Call of Cthulhu. There's a reason it's quite popular. So I do recommend it. You can check it out. I'll probably have a link below down in the description where you can read it for free. This stuff is available in the public domain, so there's no reason to not read it. You can also get free ebook versions off of Amazon, and some of them, which I think the one I have was 25 cents, and it actually has a good ebook layout. That's something that you can get as well. So this is very cheap. It's free. And that's what's great about the Cthulhu mythos and H.P. Lovecraft's work, is that anyone with the internet can access them. So check it out. The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. You can find my books, of course, at dbspress.com and davidvstewart.com. My latest book is called Voices of the Void. It looks like this. And you can get it for free by joining my mailing list at dbspress.com/list, or I'll have a link down in the description that'll let you just download the book and will actually put you on the list. It's what I would call like Lovecraft meets Aliens. So if you like Lovecraft or you like high action kind of sci-fi horror, it takes place in space. Maybe we call it Lovecraft in space. Then check it out and read it and let me know what you think. You can send me an email at stu@dbspress.com and let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys next time.